Audio speeding, check 1. Camera speeding, check 1. Check 2.
Let's be loose, huh?
All right, let's loosen up.
So what are we calling this?
I don't know yet. That's part of the script.
That's part of the script.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. This is my new podcast. Don't know what we're calling it yet, but I've got a very special guest today as my first guest on the podcast. Fellow creative, filmmaker, editor, and just all-around cool dude. I've got my blood brother here, Ranyar Roark. Say hi to the folks.
How you doing?
And this is the first inaugural podcast where we're just gonna introduce things. My name's BRAVEN. I kind of just started this YouTube channel just to push content out there to get people to listen to my music, and this is kind of the first project we're doing. We're gonna do a little podcast here. I'm gonna have different people on. We're gonna dive right in. So my name is BRAVEN. This is Ranyar Roark, and yeah, we're chilling. So I just wanted to get into it. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you, man?
I'm good. And being brothers, you know, we grew up together. We know each other very well. So I don't need to ask you any personal questions.
I just met you last week, actually. No.
Yeah, at that weird bar with that weird. Yeah. So Ranyar came down here from the burbs, and we're filming here. We wanted to get some Chicago daylight, and maybe we will in future episodes. However, we started a little late, so it is what it is, and we're just gonna get right into it. So you do you started with an interest in film or photography, or get a little specific on that.
Vacation filmmaking, and that led into like photography, and so that's how I started. This is back in early 2017, and it's morphed into concept videos, and it's going to morph into like feature films, stuff like that. So real movies.
I see. So knowing a little bit about your work, would you primarily say that you're focused now on YouTube, or what bigger projects, or what are you working on?
I'm focused on what I have going on with you right now, with your YouTube, with your kind of stuff, and then, you know, that's going to bridge into this summer where I'm going to start building my film brand. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to keep my skills sharp, working with you, go into my stuff, and build that brand so that by the time, you know, I bankroll a feature, it'll be, you know, time and people will know about it. So
people will know about it. Yeah. For those of you who don't know, Ranyar has some projects out now on YouTube. He did a project a while ago. Can you remind us what the name of that 9-part series was?
Yeah, so, well, I did 2 visual mixtapes. I call them, you know, videotapes, in February of 2021, and then, you know, November of 2021. It was Pockets and No Budget Fashion Show. Mm-hmm. So those are on YouTube. Those are available. Can
you talk about just the kind of the inspiration behind Pockets? And I know No Budget Fashion Show, and that brief dip into the Junkie Camp project, you had kind of taken like not a low budget view methodology, but just kind of like inspiration from everyday things.
DIY, really, for the Junkie Camp. That was in high school, man. That was, you know, that was a project where I had a few people in that, and then slowly but surely everyone bailed out, and it was kind of just me putting out everything. But more, you know, recent with Pockets, the idea behind that was I have a bunch of ideas, and it's a mishmash. So why don't I make what a musical artist would do? He would make a mixtape. Why don't I make a videotape and put out multiple ideas under one umbrella, and then release that, and each video can be its own separate concept? And it was pretty much a year and a half, 2-year review of the ideas in those videos.
I see. So you bring up the term mixtape, and I think it was a pretty cool way to say it. You were the first person that I'd kind of heard that coined by, and maybe you did coin it, but as far as like musically speaking, like a mixtape can mean several things, but generally speaking, the mixtape is something that is not kind of backed by the label. So you would use in your footage, I know you had things that would probably need to be cleared, things that we could call it samples in music.
I call them samples.
Yeah, just anything that's licensed and that you would probably need clearance for. You can take that as long as you're not monetizing it and make some pretty cool shit off just going with whatever with what we talked about Frank Ocean and his Nostalgia Ultra tape and how he kind of used that, the Coldplay sample off Strawberry Swing and all that stuff.
It can't be that tape can't be put out on streaming services to this day. And yeah, I was actually just going to bring that up, but I kind of lost my train of thought, but that is exactly what I do. I call them samples, just like, a rapper would. But yeah, it's the first thing on both of those tapes is samples are in the description, and this won't be monetized without permission of...
Right, but the point being to kind of just show off your ability and your creativity.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and then the promotion and the commercializing can come later. That's kind of a similar thing I did with SoundCloud.
This is my idea, and it's kind of what The Weeknd did with his House of Balloons trilogy thing, is you put it up, and his rise was really, really something else, right? But the idea for me is like, and this can air, I don't know how many people will see this, but it's to put them out, get some views on it, and then take them off. And the idea is if my brand is like a stock, in years to come, when that stock is high, right, those tapes will be off the internet, and they can be resold, and they can be redistributed. So take someone like, your favorite artist, right? How much would you be interested in seeing an old mixtape unreleased from years ago, right?
Depends on the artist, but yeah.
And it depends how much of a hardcore fan you are of that artist, right?
It's like I know people that would die to stream Nostalgia Ultra every day.
Yeah. So that kind of thing. It's like, well, what was he putting out before this movie? What was he doing, back way?
Right. I got you. But your most the Wayback Scan portion of your newest project, can you state what project that is for the people?
That's No Budget Fashion Show.
No Budget Fashion Show. I get these names mixed up. But that Wayback Scan, and I actually showed Isaac a fair chunk of that whole 27-minute project, and we were just kind of blown away at just the raw detail and and I know from actually living with you that you'd sit on your bed and just like go in, so like a flow state, and just go ham and really do things that, like, if you watch it back, you really realize like how much thought and like how much time was put into the project. Are you always like that with your projects, or was this more of a planned thing where you were going to be like, I'm going to blow them away with detail?
Great question. It's both. Yeah. So the latter, I'll cover that first. I did want to blow the viewer away. I really wanted to make it clear that everything here is like, this is the skill you're seeing. This is the level I'm at when it comes to video editing. But for the first part, you know me. I've always been OCD, and I don't like to say perfectionist, but I guess you could say that. Like, every single frame to me needs like a purpose, which is why it takes me so long to do stuff like this. I probably could do it quicker, but yeah, it's I've always been like that, where it's
so you think with your future projects we're gonna see that anyways, regardless of kind of what it's about, or just kind of the methodology behind the camera?
Absolutely. Everything will have a purpose, every detail. By
the way, I forgot to plug in the beginning, but we will put Ranyar Roark's socials here and his YouTube channel. You can go check those out. I'll link his videos actually in the description, the main ones, and people can check that out for themselves to get what we're talking about. No, but I just wanted to bring you in because you are the kind of the director, executive producer, whatever you want to say, behind this new thing that I'm doing. So I wanted to bring you in as kind of like a creative lead on the project. For those who don't know, I have music that I release. I have Spotify and basically every streaming platform. I've released a few projects on there, and I'm not very big, and I'd like to get people to hear this music. And I thought the best way to do it was kind of take on the YouTuber mentality of just pushing content. And I feel like we can talk about this in a bit, but I feel like a lot of artists are kind of more elusive in that regard. They don't like to show themselves. They don't like to vlog. They kind of just like to flex money and stuff, and just kind of leave it a mystery as to like who this person really is. I thought, maybe with doing these, podcasts, and we're planning to do some vlogs, and some day in the lives, and along with the music videos and the content that we'll push in the music direction of things, that you let the viewer in, and they can kind of relate to you in a kind of a deeper manner. And we were talking about this earlier, if you push the content, very Gary V like approach. Yeah. But I mean, at the same time, it has to be quality. But I think content is king, and then I like to say quality is queen. Like, if you don't follow up with the quality, it's not going to be there. So I guess the plan for this was to just kind of have 4 categories: podcast. We're going to do the music videos and the music visuals and stuff like that that will come along with the uploads. But also just making sure we're uploading weekly and stuff like that. I think people start to roll up a following, if you will, just from just people seeing you all the time, and they get to know more about you and can relate. So I wanted to dive in because we're both, I think, creative people. I think we kind of live to create, and I don't want to say that in kind of like a boastful way, but it's just kind of like we have to.
It's just the way we are. It's like, well, if there was no money in it, would we be doing it?
Right.
And the answer is yes.
Yeah, and I'd sit up and make beats all night, but you have to enjoy a part of it that's not, other people listening to your music, watching your videos.
There's a lot of, I don't know if you can cuss on here. You can edit it.
Cuss all you want, man.
There's a lot of bullshit that comes with making a creative project: music, film, painting. A lot of hard work, details you have to cover, right? And you and I and other people who make art can relate in that we push through it regardless, because it matters to us regardless of whether we're getting paid. It's the art that matters. So it's, we'll push through the shit just to get to that final.
Right, and it's almost like, and we're going to dive into this definitely as well, it's almost for me like it's a release. Like, people drink, people smoke, people go for runs. I love, we could talk about like what makes a person more creative, but overall, like I find it's very therapeutic for me in the first place, and you might feel the same way. What do you think makes a person creative? Jordan Peterson, a lot of people know this guy. He's all over YouTube, obviously, but he says that he makes the argument that creativity is actually quite rare. It's very rare to be a truly creative person. He referenced a scale that actually a test that you can take to see if you're a certain standard of creative, and it's really based on popularity. I don't want to say anything that's kind of just base, surface level, but he really bases it on like, are you published? Are you nationally recognized? That sort of thing, which definitely, if you get to the point where you're good enough, like, you're going to be recognized. But I think about, I don't know if I agree with that, because I think everybody can be creative. There are definitely people that are more creative than others. But he's definitely right that it is kind of that a prolific creativity. You talk about the Van Goghs and the Kanye Wests and all those people that are so-called geniuses in their craft. They really dive into it at another level, almost like a spiritual level. What do you think makes a person creative?
I think, well, it could be in the genes, right? It could be that. Sure. So it could just be natural, but it's also like experience as well. People's experiences, I think a lot of people want an outlet to talk about it, to make something about it, right? And music can be that outlet. Film can be that outlet. Graffiti can be that outlet. So I think it's experiences and or honestly just what you have. I mean, just some people just aren't born to want to.
Well, see, like, we have a middle brother. I'm the oldest, and this guy here is the youngest. There's 3 of us. Jared is actually, I don't want to be mean, but he's not like as creative as us.
He's not the same type.
He's very like one thing after the other. Like, it's kind of an organization problem, but like I like to fly by the seat of my pants. I feel the need to create. He's practicing to be a doctor, so he has to be very structured, very on paper, very attentive, just follow direction, and you have to get through college and to get through med school. I feel like he's not the opposite, but definitely in that other direction where it's not, it's not totally genetic.
He's creative in ways that I think people who don't know him personally wouldn't understand. Like when it comes to comedy and inside jokes, and he's very creative with his humor and
finding ways to study.
Yeah, and finding ways to study. He's like innovative almost in that kind of way. It's just not the same creativity, and it's just what what's what we're born with. And he was born with skills that I don't have, and you don't have, and you and I were born with skills that other people might not have. It's just what we come in with.
Yeah, I think also skills aside, genes aside, there's also just like a thirst to make stuff and to make shit. And I like sometimes that we'll call it hunger for creativity is stronger or weaker, like from day to day. I'm a very moody person. You'll definitely get to understand that. But from time to time, like I kind of go on a rampage where I will make, like I've made a whole mixtape in a week type stuff. I brought you to 202 and we recorded a couple songs, and that was all part of like a creative bender where like I literally just had to make stuff.
You were in the zone, man. You chopped that up very quickly on the night. I think that tape was released the same night or something like that.
Yeah, because I had to get it done and mastered and shit. But it goes in and out for me. So that I say that because like, what do you think makes you like puts you in the right state to be creative?
I mean, music. First and foremost, music. Music is the drive when it comes to like the ideas I have, when it comes to how I want to present something. Like I can see the colors in the music almost. It's
like a synesthesia thing.
It sounds whack to people who don't see music or hear music that way. It's just how I hear it, and everything I've ever made, almost everything I've ever made, the primary inspiration is the different sounds I hear in the music.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's it's a crossover, man, because it's like I also don't make music, so I don't make music and I don't see myself making music, yet I feel like for some reason I would transition so seamlessly into it because I like music more than I like movies, but I want to make movies.
You get more into music and albums and stuff.
Yeah, and it's just maybe it's like I think movies.
I think there's definitely like a crossover. I think like if I see, and this sounds nerdy as hell, but if I see like I used to hate museums type shit. You go into like an art museum with your school, you're on a boring ass school trip. Like, dude, just get me out of here, get me back on the bus. But as I got older, like, sounds almost pretentious to say, but you can get like inspiration from like an art piece, or like for me, like if I sit down and watch a good film, like I get very inspired.
That too. It's not just the music. If there was music is and then like movies, archive photos, like different photos of like my favorite artists from like the 90s and the 2000s, and just views and things that are scenic. Those are, I think, sub, but music for me would be like the main thing. Yeah.
Would you say that I don't know, mood's a big thing for me, and if I'm in the right mindset, I can get a lot done creatively. Would you say that like diet and exercise, and then even as far as like stuff like just practicing the right mind state and meditation and stuff like that, do you think diving deeper into caring for yourself in a physical way can help you be more creative?
Yeah, I think there's people who don't need it, but if there was a particular thing in terms of like physical health, it would be cardio. There's something about cardio that's just
relaxes you.
It relaxes you, and you're more grateful for everything after you run 3 miles than prior. And you can also think while you run. You can listen to music, and you can just let the ideas flow. I think cardio is a wonderful thing more artists should get into.
Absolutely. And I like sidebar real quick. I was listening to this podcast. I forget who was on. I forget what it was, but they were talking about artists on stage, like big rappers, that you can tell if they do cardio or not. And it's all about breath control and like how many lines can you say without having like a big gasp. And Kendrick Lamar came up, and maybe it was Freddie Gibbs. He was like, that dude definitely does some cardio, because you can tell he's up there on stage. Like, it's more, especially if you're like a smoker or anything like that, that's going to hinder with, you're going to be taking a lot of breaths. You're not going to be able to rap anything. But you can definitely like tell the difference if you actually look at that. And I totally agree. Like, I have a very fast paced mind that's just kind of thinking about everything, a lot of racing thoughts. And if I can get a good few miles under my belt, like, those kind of melt away. You don't have to touch on this if you don't want to. What do you, and I know you don't really partake in too many, you don't really drink or smoke, but would you say that, I'll start with myself. So like I was pretty into smoking for a long time, and I do my fair share of drinking as well. I've always found that I can kind of get over the lack of motivation to go make a beat and then record it into a song. And I'm kind of like on the fence as to like, does it really help? Because I think the productivity piece definitely takes a punch. But
drinking or smoking,
either one, like whatever relaxes you to the point where you're willing to sit down. What do you think?
Yeah, like Post Malone, I think I don't want to be wrong about this, but yeah, I think he's one of those artists where I think he needs to be one or the other. But yeah, you're not. Yeah, you're not the only one that that I'm sure there's a lot of artists who need to be tipsy, or they need to be a little high. And then there's artists that are just straight arrow, and like Eminem clocks in at 9 a.m. and clocks out at 5 p.m. And I don't think he does drugs at all, and he's just straight as an arrow. It's just for me, I don't need it. It's just, I guess, what I come in with. But here's the thing though, it's not like a crutch. I feel like if you do need it, right?
It's kind of like a door.
It's like it's a door you could use. And I also think while we're talking about it, it's like, but if you can be good enough to not need the door, then you can go back and forth. You don't always need to be on something when you're making something. And then there's special occasions where it's like, okay, well, if I need to think of something, why not? So
my take on it is it's twofold. So it's easier to step into the studio and get cracking if I am a little bit under the influence. However, I noticed that my long-term productivity and just being able to finish stuff and wrap stuff up definitely is hindered. And if I'm able to keep the sobriety going, like, I can definitely be overall more productive. It's just getting over that hump and the anxiety of being like, oh, I got to get into the studio. Like, little joint, I'm in there. Like, you know what I mean? But yeah, I think, being a creative person, it's interesting to talk to somebody that has kind of their own process. I know you're big into the working out and stuff. You look great.
By the way, you're doing a great job, not just for the camera. No bullshit. This is the first podcast we have done. He's doing a great job of moving through this. I would not have done as good of a job as you.
I'm literally winging it.
Just giving you props, man.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, I want to have other guests on here. I want to bring in some of my other creative friends, some of my good friends. We'll have our director, producer here of the podcast, Isaac Parfait, here filming us. We'll probably have him on the show, and we'll get his thoughts as well. I wanted to move into we cutting?
3-minute mark, huh?
Okay, we can cut that.
You want to cut now? And then we'll
yeah, let's cut now. Did I say your last name right? Is it Parfait?
Yeah.
Tea or no?
Parfait, like yogurt?
Yeah, Parfait like yogurt. How did you remember that?
It's French, right?
Yeah, it's
Oh, very cool.
No tea.
Very cool.
Yeah. No, when you said yogurt, like, that shit clicked with me. I was like, no way. No, it's fucking you. That's a good last name, though.
Thank you, quality stuff.
How do I look, huh?
Great.
So we did probably, 20 minutes? Or 25?
I would say about 25.
Okay. So on the topic of creativity, and we're going to make that a heavy talking point on this podcast, likely just because of the nature of what I do. You've seen the Genius Kanye West documentary.
Yes.
All 3 parts, right? We won't spoil it for anyone watching.
He dies at the end.
Dude, not cool.
Well, I mean, that's everybody knows Kanye West.
Very funny. Well, but you have seen it, and kind of What on the topic of creativity, there was this really cool scene, and I'm gonna try not to spoil too much, but you really get a feel of how this guy kind of operates in his head with just how he creates. And there's a cool scene from his kind of Cody, Wyoming like bunker area where he's just got he's got the studio set up on one wall, he's got some other stuff and like a chair set up on the other wall, and the whole like outer wall is just open to nature, and he just has like you can just see everything. And that was just like, that gave me chills, because I was like, this dude literally just made the creative space that he wants, and he just that's how he makes his best stuff. And I think Yay is a crazy slept on album, and people should listen to that more. What do you think of the doc? And what were your thoughts?
What we got is what I expected. It's cool to see videotape footage from before the college dropout and just see how ambitious he was, and I guess still is. But he really was being turned down by everyone. Yeah. When it came to just him wanting to rap, where he
had to really push himself in there.
He knew what he could be, and other people didn't see that. And he didn't bitch and say, "Oh well, you guys just don't know." It's like, well, okay, you don't know, but I'll show you. And he knew that it was all on him, and it's his responsibility. And it was cool to see someone take it into their own hands. And now, obviously seeing what he became is.
The crazy thing for me is like, and they go over this in the doc, but the fact that he had Cootie, his friend, kind of following him around and like just kind of filming everything. At that point, it was like he knew like, I'm gonna be a superstar. Like, we need to film this now, because it's just the fact that he was just kind of prophesizing that's crazy to me.
It's crazy to me too that he knew. I think the right person was around Kanye, and he knew. I guess it's just fate. You know what I mean? It was meant to happen. So that's my take on that. I just and the other gentleman too, Chike, Cootie and Chike. I don't want to butcher these names, but I definitely think that Cootie really had something, and it took over 20 years, I think. Or about 20 years for that documentary to come out. So he was, sitting on all that amazing footage for so long. Yeah. I don't know if I would have been able to do that. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So in that documentary, it is kind of a 20-year process, and you see the through the wire stuff and the car crash and all that stuff. It was very, very inspiring. Like, I know I jumped off the couch 1-2 in the morning after finishing it on a work night, and I was just like, I gotta make stuff. Like, I have to make stuff.
That broken jaw is like a track runner breaking his leg in half at the onset of his career. Yeah. Like, his jaw wired shut, and he wants to be a rapper. That hurdle, I think if I was around and I knew Kanye before that, and I knew seeing him go through that broken jaw, the fact that he made it through that is already enough evidence and proof at the time that he's going to be something big.
Yeah, and it's just like, the doc really takes you through everything. Like, it takes you through his ups and downs. Him trying to get a spot at Rockefeller or Def Jam was crazy, where everyone was shutting him down. Very obviously, the title says itself, but very prolific. Yeah. Very prolific artist that kind of knew what he was going to become, and that's very rare. But it was just like, I kind of wanted to talk about that, because it's how we both got inspired.
Here's the thing: Kanye is my favorite artist of all time.
I would probably say the same.
I think a lot of people can also have the opinion that I think he's on the Mount Rushmore, if not like the greatest hip-hop artist of the modern era.
There's a lot of debate to be had.
But here's the thing, though. It's so cool for both of us, because we can take so much of that, because we look up to him in so many ways. Who's to say, you can roll that documentary back in 6 months if you're feeling, uninspired. It's like, that's what I plan on doing the next time I feel uninspired, is I'm rolling one of those episodes back and just watch his mother's words, too. When they were in his mother's apartment, and they poured themselves drinks. It's like, his mother had phenomenal words and you can see where Kanye got a lot, the way he speaks and his assurance of himself. He got it, from his mother. So that was just a sidebar, but
yeah, I mean, it was. The thing with Kanye is there's a lot of people that prefer other music. There's a lot of people that he's got stuff pretty much all over the board, and his sampling technique is very interesting because obviously Stronger was a total banger, total radio hit. But that was Daft Punk. I mean, Daft Punk was hot at the time.
They have their hands in a lot, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, Daft Punk was the shit that everybody was listening to Daft Punk. I remember everyone was in it, but he made it work in his own way. And I don't like to argue about which Kanye album is better or worse. I really don't have a top 3, top 5.
Me neither.
Because they're all so different. They're all very different. You go from Late Registration and then you try to listen to Pablo afterwards, like you're gonna get a different experience.
So different. It's just his range is one of the things that makes him so great. Yeah. He is a true musician.
We talked about longevity and the fact that he's been in the game. He went from kind of fighting for a spot at Rockefeller just to get on Jay-Z's blueprint. Like, I think he, in the documentary, he's basically begging Jay-Z to get in the booth. He's like, hey, like, I can rap, and kind of proves himself. But just like going like 20 years down the line and seeing that the dude is still so wired into being like doing what he does, it's just it's crazy.
It's the firepower he has that's what I'm most in awe of when it comes to Kanye. Is his firepower. His creative firepower is something to behold.
Yeah, and the whole album editing thing where he released Life of Pablo on like Tidal, I think it came out, and then it got illegally downloaded a ton of times.
Pirate Bay, all that stuff, yeah.
But then he came out with like a new version, and people were going crazy about that. People hated it. I remember being in college at the time, and people being like, "What? Like, how can he drop like an unfinished project?" But Donda was like a work in progress where you go to these stadium shows and like you literally hear a different version of the album. Like, wild to me. But yeah, great. Genius on Netflix, obviously. I think maybe exclusively on Netflix at this point. Yes, so you got to have Netflix, but I think
it's worth buying the subscription.
Get a free trial. Watch Genius if you're at all into this stuff. You're going to want to go make whatever the fuck like right now. So let's talk a little bit about the state of music, and not just like, I guess more specifically, the state of musicians and artists on YouTube. So I touched on this a little bit earlier, but most artists, I just know from being one and like following a bunch of artists on Twitter and TikTok, they're way more into plugging current stuff, plugging their recent release, plugging their music videos or whatever. I don't find it very common that an artist is willing to kind of dive into the YouTube scene too much and like really become an annoying ass YouTuber at the root of it, because I found this interesting because there's just not too many people doing this. I don't want to sound like a pioneer, but musicians, artists, and then YouTubers have been two separate things for a long time. There are definitely artists that are better at it than others. At kind of showing themselves on the video front. I think it just does a good job of just letting you into just kind of the day in the life stuff too. Do you think that would help me per se?
I think it's a good old school take is letting people in on more personal, your personal life. And I know you were going to kick off some vlogs. Same idea. I think it's a take that a lot of other artists aren't doing. They only want to show, not everybody, but a lot of artists, musicians, rappers only want to show the highs. You know what I mean? Them at their peak. But behind the lens, is it really the peak? You don't know, right? You would know more if they vlogged it or they had a podcast, right. Or yeah.
It's just, I don't think it's an insecurity thing, and labels might kind of want them to do that. Like, you're right, like the highs and just like the music videos and stuff like that. I think it would be kind of cool to kind of bring the listener along on a visual platform. if that makes sense. And obviously, you and my close friends are going to help me hopefully begin that journey.
Let's do it, man.
Let's do it. I think, so we were talking about just, like, not many artists behave like YouTubers, and this mindset might help us out a little bit. And, yeah, so consistency is obviously going to be a big thing. And I think that's where a lot of people fall off. Can you talk a little bit about what makes someone consistent, and when does quality start to take a back seat, and when do you have to worry about quality over quantity?
It's a good question, because I'm not a model. This is going to come from me.
Yeah.
I'm not a model when it comes to any of this stuff.
I got you.
Even though I would like to be. But I think the quality should come over the quantity in your big projects, on your album, on your individual singles. Quality always has to be.
And music videos.
Yeah, music videos. But I think when it comes to like the vlogs and even these podcasts, I think your consistency is more important than, if the lighting is shit on here, well, it is what it is.
One.
I mean, I'll come back on here later and we can do it.
We're definitely going to do a part 2. You guys are going to see Thrill House. He's a good friend of mine, creative brethren, creatives alike. He's one of the guys that makes a lot of beats for me and for some of my other buddies. But we're really going to talk about the same stuff. Like I'm going to ask him what makes him more creative, what gets him in the flow state. I'm really excited to have some of you guys on, and definitely going to bring you back. Because I have a lot more we need to talk about. I wanted to keep these pretty short. I wanted to do under an hour. I think droning on is probably not the best.
When there's two creative people across from each other, man, you can have conversations on conversations and multiple part 2s. I wouldn't be surprised if you had a part 2 for everybody.
Yeah.
And but yeah, good plan here. You have some guests in the pipeline, and I just think the consistency, man, once a week. I think I don't want to spoil it for them, but if you can do like once a week,
And I think, like, obviously no one knows who we are. But as you gain a little bit of a, if you roll up a little bit of a following, you get some people. I mean, you get some resources, you get a little cash flow. You can do bigger and better things.
That, and like what I'm doing with my mixtapes or videotapes. Worst comes to worst, you can take it all down, and if you bank on yourself doing well and being recognized, you can re-release them later. And you can do that kind of thing. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So,
well, yeah, I think the main point of this part was just to get it out there. Get it out there. A lot of people start off and it's really shitty. Yeah. I know my first stuff was really bad. I was uploading to SoundCloud for a long time, and it was just, I didn't realize how atrocious it was. And I'm very self-critical, but if I did realize how bad it was, if I could have looked at my music at the time and been like, wow, this is so shitty, dude, you got to stop now. I would have quit. If I wasn't focused on getting better, and if I didn't want to create so bad, I would have stopped if I realized how crappy it was. Go check out my SoundCloud. There's some decent shit on there.
Go ahead if you were.
But I was going to say, I think you and me alike, and other people who are ambitious with this stuff, it's, when we start, our heads are up our asses so much. My first video, I'll play it for both of you after we're done here. Cringe. Yeah. We're talking the worst thing you've ever seen captured on a lens. Mm. But when I first put that out, man, I thought it was the coolest thing ever because I had never edited a video. Mm-hmm. I had never put it out on Instagram for people to like. And then when people had never seen that side of me, and then here I am putting out a card that I didn't know would go this far. Or I did know, I just didn't know where it would go. You just don't know when you first start, and
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, it's only up from here, and now you can kind of look back and criticize it a little bit, but I think it's all part of the growing process. I wanted to talk about virality real quick, and just obviously you've got the little pump factor where you put out a hot few songs on SoundCloud, which, I mean, all the credit to him. But really, he got that huge label push with, you know, songs like Gucci Gang and D-Rose and those other ones.
Boss,
Yeah, Boss. That's right. D-Rose. That's my shit. But you can see maybe if he didn't have such a big push and it was more him, like authentically, maybe he'd still be relevant. People might know, and I speak very frankly when I say that, he's not relevant anymore. Might be financially stable, might be, but who knows? He's not really showing his face in the art world anymore.
Yeah.
That Smoke Perp show, Lil Pump's collaborator, he had like literally 10 people in the crowd. And this was like last week.
Heard about that. I don't know if it was you, but quick sidebar, I'll let you continue. I think Lil Pump's super cool, but his image, it just wasn't going to last.
Mm-hmm.
The longevity wasn't in his image. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm probably talking too close to
No,
this
you're
thing,
fine. You're fine.
because I keep, this, but the longevity just wasn't in his image from the get. Not that he makes great. I thought he was making great
It was
stuff.
popping for the time.
I think his
Yeah.
image is cool. It's just the longevity is something else. You know what I mean? And I don't know if he wanted that, but
If I can just inject an anecdote, bro, it's in his name, bro. It's just the pump.
I was literally gonna say that, but I didn't want to sound like
No.
weird,
Like
No,
cheesy.
just-
No, that's true.
like
that is
inflation,
true.
like an inflated.
Yeah. It's just
Yeah.
when you
Like when I first heard the name Lil Pump, I was like that. Like I know everyone puts the Lil in there, but like that's crazy. Like that's literally Lil anything. Like but he's right. Like it was very fitting for the time. These dudes blew the fuck up on SoundCloud, and that was all them. Like that was them clipping vocals and all. Like it didn't matter. Like the quality was shitty, but it was just so banging that it just got millions and millions and millions of plays. Then he got the label push where the label stepped in, got him dripped out, gave him probably a fat ass advance, and I don't know. I don't know if he lost the spark due to just a lack of creativity or just his style is not fitting anymore. But it is very one dimensional, and it was very very popping at the time. Maybe for that reason.
Yeah, it's like an old school karate fighter fighting new MMA. That's how I can think about it best, because the style is super cool for the time, and it's effective. Lil Pump is super effective in 2017, in 2018, and in 2022, him and Smoke Perp and some of the others, it's just not that anymore. I hope, and I'm sure you would agree, I hope at a certain point in this decade they can get back on track with
maybe a different direction.
Yeah, with a different direction.
Yeah,
and
do something different.
They already have the name, you know?
Yeah, and they already have the popularity, whereas if I feel like XXX, and Isaac's a huge fan of XXX Tentacion, Florida boy, fellow Florida gentleman, but he was really good at just switching up the genres. He was really solid, and it showed his ability, his raw ability to just kind of boss up and do any genre. He would do the emo stuff, the R&B stuff. He would also dive into even like post-punk, like metal and other. He'd sample the wildest shit. There's a song where they sample Slipknot, and that's I got a ton of respect for X, and rest in peace. Obviously had his personal issues, but that was just an example of someone who can adapt, someone who can come on to the scene and just be like, hey, like maybe it was his nature to make other stuff, like maybe it was his nature, and he did touch on that, like I want to do multiple, I want to touch on all genres.
He's a real chameleon.
Yeah, but I think that helps you where like we're getting into we're getting to the point where MGK kind of got bullied out of the rap scene and had to go pop punk, but hey, he was able to.
I was just gonna say, although he got bodied, and rest in peace to formerly known rapper MGK. However, look at what he's done in his new lane, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, like it or not like it, he's making fucking money, and a lot of people still like him, and
Yeah, that's true. I mean, he's very polarizing. I think he gets a lot of push from his label as well. I think he's a very talented dude, but definitely interesting there. But on the point of virality, there are people that go viral, and they go viral quickly, and it's seemingly overnight. But there are also people I bring up Lil Durk, fellow Chicago native, Lil Durk. I knew about him in high school. Like, I knew about Lil Durk going way back, and like he was always popping in the streets of Chicago, but it took half a dozen years for that dude.
I didn't hear about him until 2020
with the Drake song.
I don't know if it was that, but yeah, something.
Yeah, like he got the Drake collab. But the dude has been grinding for over a decade, and I think like he did have that kind of base following where he was big on a small scale, if that makes sense. But it just goes to show, like, if you put the work in, like, you can grow to the point where one of the biggest rappers in the game. I mean, truly.
He is huge. I cannot deny.
Truly huge, and just I have a massive amount of respect for someone who I knew. Me and my college buddies would listen to him freshman, sophomore year, where we knew about him, but if you asked the next person over, like, they obviously had no idea who he was. He just wasn't that big.
So I like that when you know an artist who's really good. It's like the other person doesn't. It's like that kind of special thing you have.
It's like your little secret. Like and then they blow up, and then you feel great. Like why I found this person.
Yeah, like Brockhampton's huge, right? But it's like there was a time where like you before me. Brockhampton was very underground, and it's like if you knew about Brockhampton, it was like kind of that thing. It's like, okay, we have that in common, and they're such a cool group that when you knew them in the Saturation days in 2017, it just felt special. You know?
Well, I mean, the thing about so my buddy put me onto Brockhampton like right as they were popping with Saturation, and they were relatively unknown. People knew Kevin Abstract. People knew about his art and his sort of stuff individually. That's another group that goes way back. I mean, we're talking literally
Alive Since Forever in 2012.
That was 2012. Like on the internet very early on.
And guess where they met? You know where they met?
Kanye too, though.
Kanye too. The forum. Kanye's influence is bigger than we and everybody can ever know. It's.
I met all my friends through Kanye West, but I haven't met him yet. Yes. That's one of the rawest lines I've ever heard. But Brockhampton was crazy because that was my favorite group, literally for that reason, because I literally grew up with them, and at the time, they were like popping off literally. The next month after I heard them, like Saturation dropped. Bryce showed me Saturation. Shout out Bryce Hare. And I was crazy about them. Like I loved it. I got into like researching like every single member, and they literally blew up in my face. And I couldn't help but take a little bit of like credit for that because I was just like, I've been putting everyone on to Brockhampton.
I've been telling you, motherfuckers.
I've been telling you about this, and for the longest time, like you didn't listen. So you feel like a little bit of ownership there. But yeah, so like I think it all boils down to work. Like I think you have to have the product there. Like you have to have the product there. We're gonna. Was there anything else you wanted to dive into? Because I was thinking we could wrap this up here in a second.
I wish I had time to go into the doc today. However, not right now. I don't have anything on mind. But we're gonna do a part 2 in months to come.
Yeah. So Ranyar's working on his own projects, and of course we'll have his stuff linked.
Look, Macho Randy. Brand, company brand. I don't know the full correct name for it, but I'm starting to put out stuff under that umbrella, and it's not to sound cliche, but it's deeper than
the videos.
Like videos and movies. But it really is an archive creative community, and it'll be cool for people listening to this to see where that goes. Really,
I think through this channel we can actually give like sneak peeks into that too, along with my stuff. We can kind of do a joint thing there. But no, thank you for tuning in. This is the first episode, so if you made it here, you're one of the pioneers on this channel, and I really appreciate you guys listening. Check Ranyar out on YouTube. Check him out on Instagram. We'll post all this stuff here and in the description. My name's BRAVEN. It's all caps, BRAVEN, on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube. I'll link my stuff as well. I'm working on an album, Fall in Love by Sunday, this summer. It's coming out. Videos, music videos, vlogs, podcasts, shorts. We got it all. We're coming to you now. And get ready for us because we're coming in hot, baby. Thank you, Ranyar. I really appreciate your time.
Appreciate it, man. We'll do it again.
All right, thank you. I think we're good.